So at the beginning of this year, Teen Wolf the movie came out, which is a follow-up to the series that came before, that is beloved by many. And I got to sit down for like a month and binge this show and in the movie, and I'm here to rank all the seasons plus the movie. So let's get into it. When you text me in the nighttime. So first off, I want to say that this is spoiler filled. So if you haven't seen the show or the movie yet, I suggest you go watch those and come back to this video when you've watched the whole series. It took me like a month. And so we're kicking off in 7th place with the Teen Wolf the movie, which the Teen Wolf the movie is overall just a reunion special for the great show that came before. It really was amazing seeing all of the legacy characters from the series come together, besides the absence of a few being Dylan O'Brien, Cody Christian, Daniel Sharman, and Arden Cho, who I wish they could have been there, but they all had their own things to do. I know Dylan O'Brien, he was filming something. Cody Christian, he's on All American, so they all were doing their own thing. But the story itself is pretty average, as the whole plot is somehow Allison, who died in season 3 of the show, and has been the fatality of the whole show until now, comes back to life with no real explanation, with the Nagatsune from season 3 also returning for revenge against Beacon Hills, but mostly against Scott McCall. This 2-hour and 20-minute movie is just full of fan service without adding anything to the story that is really worth it. Allison and Scott being able to get their happy ending is bittersweet because it cheapens how heartbreaking and fatal Allison's death was in the first place. Her death in the show established the stakes that the show could take. It kind of reminds me of Randy's death in Scream. It really showed us the stakes that the writers and the people making the movie were willing to go. But Allison was the only death where I really felt it, and I really felt the threat for these characters. And now it was just all undone. In this instance, the actors actually wanted to leave the show, so it wasn't even really the writer's choice to do this. I feel like Derek getting killed off, though, was a great conclusion, as this show basically started with him and Scott to begin with, and now the story ends with his death. And I honestly just wish that this movie was more than just a reunion and all fan service, because this movie has so much potential to be better, and not even Mountain Ash can stop this movie from being covered in Wolfsbane. And so the movie gets a C+. Following up in 6th place, we have Teen Wolf Season 2. And in Season 2, they continue the story from Season 1, but with a new threat and mystery, which involves a mysterious and deadly Kanima, which puts the town from Beacon Hills in far more danger than Season 1. When I first started the season, things seemed a bit off to me. The tone seemed to shift a bit, and I hadn't really caught on until the last episode, which is this season is more serious than Season 1, and the whole show develops this like more serious tone after Season 1, because Season 1 had this little cheesy and campy feel. But also Tyler Posey's acting in the season was a lot better than Season 1, but I felt like the story overall wasn't intriguing or captivating. There were many times when characters I love, like Allison or Jackson, would do things that felt off or didn't make sense to me, especially when it comes to the relationship between Scott and Allison. It also seemed like everyone was treating Lydia so poorly, and it made me truly feel bad for her as she's dealing with trauma, trying to reach out to talk to someone, only to instantly be yelled at or pushed to the side because the other characters just had more important things to do. A good amount of the season dragged from me, and it's because I didn't feel that grasp of attention that I got from the very first episode until the last in Season 1. This season did make me laugh, mostly due to Styles, played by Dylan O'Brien. The budget and effects seemed bigger and a little better, but I think this season lacked overall in the story's quality, and Season 2 of Teen Wolf gets a B-. Coming in 5th place, we have Teen Wolf Season 3, and Season 3 of Teen Wolf is the strangest, as the story works in 2 parts. The first half focusing on an alpha pack of werewolves and a druid who is on a murdering spree as the threat, and the second half being a mixture of the aftermath from the first half, and also bringing us a new threat in the Oni. This whole season really feels like 2 seasons categorized into one, and that has to do with the contractual obligations, as the show moved film locations from what I've read. The standout to me in this from what I've read, and that's why this season is different from the others. But the standout to me in the season really is Dylan O'Brien as Styles, more specifically in the second half, as he had to play a different side of his character that we haven't seen before, and it really showed what he is capable of doing acting wise. This show has really frustrated me with the different relationships that they try out, as they set up boundaries for why Allison and Scott can't be together, but then they break those boundaries by making Allison and Isaac a thing, which just didn't sit right with me. Like, why do these characters need to be in relationships at all? Like, I get that it's a teen drama, but it just doesn't seem realistic or right to me, especially with what happens in the 23rd episode of the season, which was heartbreaking and definitely made me emotional, which is Allison's death. And the second half of the season in general was the better half, as it gave us something new, it experimented, and was more suspenseful and captivating than season 2. I will say that the first half of season 3 definitely had its moments. The plot that made me invested was with the druid and figuring out why it's killing specific people, and the backstory and lore was very interesting to me. Overall, I still believe the stories and plots in season 3 are far better than the cannibal plot in season 2 with Jackson. They are more captivating, suspenseful, but there are a few creative decisions that are made that I think are questionable, like Scott's dad coming into the story felt odd and was underwhelming due to all the other things that were happening, and it felt like a big deal that was belittled to me. Pacing was a little weird, but overall this was still a pretty enjoyable season. Teen Wolf season 3 gets a B+. So in 4th place we have Teen Wolf season 6. And season 6 finished off the series with 2 separate plots. The first in the first half revolving around the wild hunt and being a psychological thriller-like tone, and the second half being a battle between hunters and the supernatural, which does get intense in some places. This season left me feeling a little mixed due to the fact that the whole season doesn't have an overarching plot, and it is really similar to season 3. When it comes to the flow of the story, a lot of times this season felt like it had things missing. I think that has to do with not having a sustained cast. Dylan O'Brien, who's a beloved character in the series, was gone for most of the season, and his absence was definitely felt. Some other characters like Hayden disappeared with only one name drop, and because of this, they started shipping characters that didn't have any built chemistry at all. More specifically, we finally get confirmation of Lydia and Styles, but then Styles disappears for the whole second half of the season, which also leads to the writers forcing a ship between Scott and Malia. It all just feels like sloppy writing and trying to make things what they shouldn't be. Besides all of that, I thought the stories and the build-ups to the twists were as good as they can get. The first part with the wild ride really made me feel scared for these characters, since this threat was something new and unfamiliar. Like seeing everyone like just vanish and disappear to this other like dimension, it was really something new and something that made me feel, oh crap, like how is this gonna play out? But the best things to me were when the pack were trying to remember Styles, and they went on not knowing of his existence for like a whole episode or two. I really had no idea where things were going to go, and just made the conclusion more satisfying to see unravel. Now for the second part, which is the big finale of the series, I am glad they brought back as many characters as they could, like Jackson, Ethan, Kate, Derek, and a few others. It was really nice to see all of these characters together for one final episode, and I do feel like the plot with the Anukete was underwhelming. It did bring some great psychological horror vibes with some scenes, but I feel like the plot with Gerard turning the whole town of humans and natural people against the supernatural was a whole lot better in terms of suspense, horror, drama, the action, and overall writing. For the finale season of the series, I feel like this season was a bit underwhelming due to some weird choices and a cast that is unsustainable, as they all are trying to branch out of the series. But for the most part, the season hits all the right notes when it comes to direction, writing, and definitely acting-wise. I remember I didn't like Tyler Posey's acting in the first season, and that he needed improvement, and he's definitely improved. Teen Wolf Season 6 was a great and emotional final adventure with this packed cast and story. Season 6 gets a B+. In third place, we have Teen Wolf Season 4. Season 4 feels like a real improvement from the past 2 episodes, which were Season 2 and 3. The story feels more complete, has better pacing, and is more interesting than Season 3 and Season 2 stories. Tyler Posey as Scott is as awesome as always. Dylan O'Brien as Styles is still as lovable as ever, but you really do feel the absence of Allison in this season after the fatality that happened in Season 3. She was one of the vital characters in the series, and so her absence was definitely felt. The season, though, mostly focuses on a Deadpool that specifically targets people with supernatural abilities, which made a lot of the action intense, especially with the introduction of a bunch of new characters. It was intense trying to figure out who is a hunter trying to cash in on the Deadpool. It really gave me John Wick vibes when someone goes excommunicado, and I think that's why I really was invested and captivated by this season and its overarching story, especially since Kate returned and was as menacing and relentless as ever. It was also cool to see her teamed up with Peter for a little while too, and especially with Derek losing his powers only to learn that he wasn't losing them but was just evolving into an actual wolf. It was such a satisfying twist and reveal. Teen Wolf Season 4 Teen Wolf once again is captivating with the few different plots and keeps entertaining with this intense suspense and build-ups, while also still rocking the same beloved characters that keep outperforming their previous performances on this show. Season 4 of Teen Wolf gets an A-. In second place, we have Season 1 of Teen Wolf, and Teen Wolf Season 1 starts the series off strong as the story is compelling, and by the end of each episode makes the viewer want to keep watching the next. I've never been a person that was big on werewolf-centered media until this show, and it has definitely changed my perspective on werewolf media. Now, as I do really love the protagonist played by Tyler Posey, I feel like his acting isn't as great as I hoped it would be. A lot of the time, he's better in his performance when he's on screen with someone else, whether it's Dylan, Colton, or Crystal's characters. This season also has this cheesy tone and feeling that a typical teen drama would have. But the suspense and the way this show is able to grab my attention is a feeling I haven't had in a while. A lot of the chemistry between the characters is what has me locked in as well. Dylan O'Brien as Styles is such a lovable character. I really enjoyed the few scenes he had with Tyler Hoechlin's Derek, as their frenemy banter was hilarious. The chemistry between Posey, Scott, and Reed's Allison is so charming, adorable, and is my definition of a perfect on-screen romance. This first season really plays into the origin story of Scott getting his werewolf abilities and learning how to control them, learning the lore and rules behind being a werewolf. It really is similar to a superhero story like Spider-Man, and we see Scott deal with trying to distance himself to protect his friends and trying to make a compromise and learn to control his anger. And it is such a generic story and trope, but it's the ways that the writers and directors enhance the story by adding in Colton Haynes' Jackson to trigger Scott and help test his abilities and test his limits. Also, with the storyline of Derek and his family's history mixed with Allison's parents being hunters and there being history there, the way this season was able to balance all of it out so nicely and in some episodes just give us a little tease or taste to keep us invested to these other subplots was just very satisfying. Especially after learning more about the alpha werewolf, this also plays into how well the pacing of the show is, as each episode is 41 minutes long with 12 episodes. I feel like this show had way better pacing than some. I feel like this season had way better pacing than some seasons or shows have that are currently made today. Overall, Teen Wolf Season 1 had my eyes glued to the screen as each plot with its twists and turns kept me invested, while many of the characters made me laugh, smile, and feel some emotions, and play with my heartstrings, while also making me feel the threat that was at stake in this season. Teen Wolf Season 1 is an A-. In first place, we have Teen Wolf Season 5. Teen Wolf Season 5 is bigger, better than all the previous seasons, with a larger cast, a more detailed and complete story, while also keeping the great amount of suspense and humor and giving some horror elements. The whole scale of the season is bigger than the previous, as this season has 20 episodes, and Season 3 did have 24, but that season felt like two completely different story arcs compiled into one season, while this season was just one big story arc that deals with mutated supernatural creatures called chimeras, which are made by humans. More further, this new threat called Dread Doctors. This season has a lot of different plots that have satisfying conclusions which lead into other plots. For example, the whole storyline for Jordan Parrish that has been developing from Season 3, and we now find out that he's a freaking hellhound, which is absolutely nuts, but it's so cool that the way that they were teasing it and the build up to it. There are also a ton of new threats this season, like Theo, who was played by Cody Christian, who really showed his acting chops in the season and really impressed me, since I've only seen him in a few other things like when I was a kid in Austin Alley or in All American. We also have the Dread Doctors, the Chimera Pack, the Desert Wolf, and then we have the Beast. The weakest out of these is definitely the Desert Wolf, but it was great seeing Marisol Nichols in such a ruthless role. This season definitely took some horror inspiration when it came to some action. The way scenes were shot and the Dread Doctors definitely gave off Plague Doctor vibes. A few nitpicks that I had this season is that at one point it felt like Scott and Styles were going around telling a lot of people about supernatural creatures and bringing them into the know about everything, and they were like just telling too much information to too many people. But it also does kind of make sense due to the whole Chimera arc and like a bunch of the teenagers being stolen to experiment on. I do have to admit, I did miss Tyler Hoechlin in the season as Derek, since he was nowhere in this season. But we did get a guest appearance from Crystal Reed, so it was bittersweet at least. Overall, Season 5 of Teen Wolf is surprisingly the best season so far, as it gets suspense-filled, horrifying, and it's just a better season in terms of quantity, but most importantly, upping the quality. So many of the plots were captivating and left me satisfied by the end. This season is without a doubt an A+. This season definitely surprised me, especially since I wasn't a big fan of anything like werewolf related before this. It was always vampires or something else, but this has definitely changed my perspective on this. I still have to watch the Teen Wolf movies like from the 80s. I plan to watch those when I do a bunch of horror rankings and reviews for y'all. But yeah, this show is definitely one that I really enjoy. If I had to give a rating to the whole show and series, I'd probably give it like a B+. It's a teeter between A- and B+ for like an overall. Yeah, it's either between B+ and A-, but I'm leaning more towards B+. I just feel like there was a lot of behind the scenes things that affected the show overall. Like actors leaving, Tyler Hoechlin, who was a big character, disappearing for like 2 to 3 seasons. Crystal Reed, who was like one of the leads or like supporting characters, leaving. And like don't get me wrong, her essence of her character was still like talked about and like hinted to throughout the whole show, but it still felt like they shouldn't have killed her off in the first place. They should have like done what they did with Derek and like Styles and like had them go and have the characters do their own thing instead. But in like Jackson, overall, I really enjoyed the series. Let me know what you thought about my ranking down below. Did you enjoy it, or did you agree? Did you not agree? Let me know what you think down below. I hope you did enjoy. I plan to do more rankings and reviews over the course of the next few days and months. So hope you'll be looking forward to those. But yeah, hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
When you text me in the nighttime, when the stars fall on the phone till the